So if you hear him bark and stuff, he'll definitely bark if the mailman comes, but it's usually not as loud on the video as I feel like it is, you know? So I'm always like apologizing, but then you can't even hardly hear him. Okay, buddy.
Like unavoidable.
I know. Yeah. Well, I used to send him off to doggy daycare, but actually like nice to have him here. Like on days like this. Where,
this is like not, for sure. I mean, dogs bark in my building all freaking day. I hear them all day. I feel so
bad. But otherwise I had a great week last week. I kind of like didn't do that much work.
Nice.
And I was with my kids a lot and just by myself a lot, and it was really nice. So doing good.
I know. It was like such a weird week with the holiday.
Yeah, it was, because my husband didn't take Friday off. I didn't take Friday off, but I had like a big chunk in the middle where I went to lunch with my mom and stuff. And so it was kind of like, I don't know, it was weird, but
I know that's what's fun is like we could
ready to get
whatever we want. You know what I mean? Like, like we want to get a couple things done. Why not? Sometimes I like to, well, I definitely was this round, but sometimes I like to just because like, who needs to come back to a lot of stuff? Yeah, for sure. It feels so great to start Monday without a bunch of like things, like little tiny things that you didn't get done the week before. So exactly. All right. So I have it all set up.
Okay.
So I'm just going to hit go, and then it kind of like takes a second. So I'll like start talking when I see that it's like live in the group.
Okay.
And like introduce you and like read your bio and stuff like that.
Okay.
And, it's pretty casual. I mean, your questions are great and they'll lead to other conversation for sure.
Great. I'm ready to go.
Perfect. All right. I get so excited when Zoom is like working properly.
I know.
Oh, gosh. All right, everyone. I am here with Maggie. I'm really excited for today's topic. The reason being that we are talking about engaging with your email list. And I think that this is something that everybody wants an email list. But the truth is, if you're not engaging with it, it's not going to really do much for you. And I think that we tend to forget about that piece of it, or, think we should only email them. I know like the number one complaint I hear from people is like, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be scammy. And they feel that like every email is that way. So we're really into these things. For those of you who are on, say, hi below, so we know you're here. If you're watching the replay, say replay. We will definitely be checking in with you later. And, let us know if you have an email list, or is this going to be the year you finally start your email list? That way we just have an idea where you're at with things. And if at any point in time you have questions, just let us know what they are so we can answer them properly.
All right. I love questions, by the way, just before Nicole introduces me. I love getting questions on the fly. I don't have Facebook open right now, so,
I'll be reading them.
Okay, great. Anyway. Okay, cool. Yeah, I love getting questions. Try to stump the Maggie. Okay, go ahead. Tell them who I am. I'm excited to get going.
I will introduce you. I'll give you the official intro. And the thing is, you guys, this is all about visibility. So getting your questions answered, showing up in the comments is really helpful for us too. And it just really brings that good visibility energy for you as well. So I'm really excited to connect you all to Maggie. Maggie is an email marketing strategist, and copywriter who works with moms who are online entrepreneurs. She specializes in helping moms reclaim their identities separate from their children, and clients hire her when they want to step away from having to charge by the hour for their services and increase their revenue from selling online courses and programs. She has spent her entire career seizing audiences' attention and moving them to action via the written word. She went to Columbia School of Journalism and worked in magazines in New York before transitioning to marketing. She lives in San Diego with her husband, her 4-year-old AJ, and her 1-year-old Morgan, and her cantankerous 10-year-old Brussels Griffin Toby, who we may hear from today.
Yeah.
So Maggie,
hi, thank you.
I'm really excited because I know that people, like, email is so important. I cannot stress it enough. And, that's one of the things that most of my clients really start working on. I think it's a huge factor in being able to move away from just one-to-one services. I feel like you absolutely need to have an email list if you want to do that easily and if you want to really increase your financial security long term.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think having an email list, even if it's really small, that's some of the stuff I want to talk about today has to do with having a really small email list, because people talk about grow your list, make it bigger, as though you won't be able to reap any benefits until it's a certain size. And that's actually not true. And I can go, like, as we talk, I can go into, but, the main benefits you'll reap if you're regularly sending email are, you will be able to, let's see, there's really three. One is you'll be able to pitch, right? So if you have something new or you want to put something on sale that you sell digitally, even if it's a service, and I hesitated bringing this one up first because I know people think it's spammy to sell on email, and I know we're going to talk about that. Right. But if you just want to say, if you have a reason to talk about that service, like it's on sale or it's a good time of year to get it, then sending email regularly that's a great place to shove it in there, even if your list is small. The second reason is because you want to sending email regularly allows you to see what people respond to. So you may have an idea in your head of what your audience cares about and what works for them. But if you send email every week is what I recommend. I used to say it depends. Now I say every week, because you have a chance to really compare your emails to each other in terms of what's resonating, what's getting opened, what kind of things are getting clicked on. And if your email list is small, paying attention, and most of the people on it, or you've interacted with them in some way, paying attention to who clicks on what. So do you have like a collection of people who are really hot, like really click on everything or click on a lot more things? So sending email regularly means, those are people that you can reach out to potentially one-on-one. Like follow up by email or get them on the phone, or just know that they're paying attention. Right.
Build a relationship with them.
Yeah. And then the third one is sort of like more of my, I feel like is a softer one, or I don't know if this appeals to everybody, but writing regularly about your business really allows you to, it's not softer. It allows you to firm up your messaging and allow your messaging to evolve. So if you say like I say, I'm an email marketing strategist, and I focus on moms. I work with lots of types of people, but I focus on moms because I want them to reclaim their identities. All that stuff kind of came out of me over time. Like I didn't come up with that just one day. I actually wrote about stuff over time, and kind of having that weekly practice of writing and then sending it out, which instead of like just writing it in a journal, really allows you to figure out your messaging, like why are you doing this and who is it for? And rather than sort of like setting that in stone or creating like an affirmation about it and setting it to the side on your desk and never thinking about it, it really allows you to interact with your mission week after week after week. So those are my big three. Sorry. So yeah, I wanted to get that out there. There's lots of reasons.
Saying that about emailing every week, because that's actually what I recommend to my clients. And sometimes I say, get started with twice a month if you haven't done it yet, just building it up consistently. Because if you think about it, they say people need to hear from you an average of 7 times before they buy from you. If you're just emailing your list once a month, like that's the majority of the year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
A relationship with you.
Yeah, that's true.
And really see that you are consistent and that you deliver value and things like that. So I love that you're saying email once a week, and that's absolutely in alignment with what I tell my list as well. And sometimes I'm like, should I be telling them something different? Does that need to be updated? So it's good to hear from an email expert that I'm on track with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
clients.
And like, you can recycle some stuff. Basically so I think what happens is people feel like they definitely don't have time to do once a week, and they don't have enough stuff to talk about. So, the time thing. So you definitely want to set your titles in advance. Like, what are you going to write about every week? Like have that all figured out. And that's the thing that takes the bulk of the time.
I
Because
agree. I think setting the email title probably takes
and just figuring out what is it going to be about week after week after week. And then if you can, I actually don't do this because I like to write them the day that I send them. And it just goes to show you, like, the best people's advice, like, it really matters what works for you.
I usually do that myself.
I used to try to batch, right? Mm-hmm. But actually, like, I used to be a journalist, and writing on deadline is really helpful for me to get things out fast without, and like banish this the perfectionist, because if you know your email has to go out that day and you set aside, I set aside maybe like 45 minutes to write it and just send it straight to my list if I'm not segmenting or doing anything fancy. And you got to write it. You got to get it out there. And so it actually saves time for me versus like setting aside like 4 hours to batch. I don't feel like writing for 4 hours usually. The time thing. So you have to experiment with what works for you. 1 month is better than nothing. Once a month is better than nothing. Twice a month is better than once a month. So, if you feel like you can't get to once a week, then just don't, everything is like, don't let it stop you from doing it at all. Exactly. Set aside time to figure out the titles, not necessarily to write all the content at once, unless you like doing that. And then how to figure out the titles. I think people get really, it's sort of like, when you ask people, like, you feel like you have a million ideas, but then when you have to actually sit down and figure them out, they like leave your head and you can't remember. Right. So what I like to do, and so I had this professor in journalism school. Again, I don't know why journalism is coming up so much, but because I haven't been a journalist for years, but he would do something like, so this bottle of lotion is on my desk, and he would be like, come up with 100 story ideas about this bottle of lotion. So like, where was the bottle sourced? Why is it called this? What, this is from Trader Joe's. Like, let's do the story about so you had to come up with 100 before you could leave class. So, so you have to do stuff like that. You have to take a big, topics in your business. So for me, I do, I have 4, I think. I do copywriting, thinking bigger for moms, which is kind of my topic about like moms and feminism. Anyway, and I have 2 others. Doesn't matter what they are. But so I have, and then underneath those, I have
like buckets, like themes.
Yes.
Visibility.
And then I just iterate, right? So then I think like I don't always like alternate between the 4, but I'll do like, when you have like sort of these buckets, how do you do it? So how do you come up with like the titles underneath? What?
I mean, those themes are consistently what makes up my process with how I work with clients, and the areas that I feel, allow them to create unstoppable profits through multiple income streams. So it's sort of more like those are the themes that I try to stick under. Most of my content falls under one or multiples, but I'm not rigid about scheduling them in a row or just sticking to one theme at 1 month. I also am more of a spontaneous, we were talking about this actually in the training with Haley the other day. I'm more of a spontaneous content creator. So I think that, once again, I think consistency is more important than sticking to a rigid content schedule. As long as you're showing up, who cares about the repetition of your themes?
I think so. Yeah. Like if you're spontaneous, I definitely come up with ideas from talking to clients. So I'll retroactively figure out which category it fits in, and I'll still schedule it because I like to have that feeling that I have a bank of stuff. Like I have stuff planned out through the rest of the year for weekly content.
Oh, that's awesome.
But just because I have so many ideas. So like a great thing to do is just have a document. Like I like to use a spreadsheet, but if that's, I think that's pretty simple. But if that's like just a notes, and write them down every time you think of something, but you don't have time at that moment, just grab the title out of your head and put it down so that you have it somewhere.
I write I have a journal that I do everything in because otherwise I would have things everywhere, but then I kind of transfer it into a list in Trello. And I think it's a good idea for you guys to start upgrading to a spreadsheet or Trello or whatever. I think it's an important part of up-leveling your business and really taking yourself and your content ideas seriously versus, just always coming up on the spur of the moment or things like that. I definitely think it can be helpful. I'll often too, think about what happened over the past because I do a lot of lives for content, and then use them, send my email list to them. So I might say, like, hey, what happened over the past 48 hours and how can I connect that to business?
Oh, that's so smart. Yeah. And I do too. I go live weekly on Facebook. So usually my email is like a little intro into that topic, and then I just link to the video. So if you like going live, like you can, you don't have to feel like you have to create two separate pieces of content.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say about consistency. So I think it's really important to be consistent and do it on the same day, and do it either every week every week is what I say, right? But not because, I think what kills it so fast is just consistency for consistency's sake. Like I said, it's kind of like a diet. I said I was going to do this, and then the first thing you want to do is not do it anymore. Like your body rebels. And so, and I think also, if you can't email making money, you will drop it like a hot potato. Like who cares? It's so much of content marketing, it will, as soon as you get a new big fish client and they're taking up all your time, or you have a week where your kids are sick or whatever, you will drop it. And so you have to figure out how email connects to your bottom line in order to actually show up every week. That's what happened with me. I was already an email expert. Actually, I don't want to undermine myself. I am an expert. I was already working with clients who were making a lot of money through email, and I was really helping them and really getting results. And I wasn't emailing my own list every week because I was so busy with them. I was so busy, and I was like, I can't do this. I don't have time. But as soon as I set out a strategy for myself, which we can talk about in detail about what I mean, but for myself and my much smaller list than my clients, right? For how I was going to make email connect to revenue in my business, I show up every single week. I will never miss a week. I even showed up last week when it was 4th of July. A lot of people will be like, oh, well, nobody's looking anyway. Well, who cares? I don't care. What if they are? You never know. People will be like, the summer's dead, or Christmas is dead, or whatever, holidays are dead. But no, I
actually
sent emails
on Saturday this week. I sent one to the summer camp list and one to the rest of my list that's not opted in for summer camp. And the open rates were high on both. So, and I think that's the other thing too, is I know people get crazy about what's the best day to email my list, or, what day of the week should I email them? What do you say to questions like that?
I like to do it on the same day every week because, so the way I teach email, it's very conversational. None of my clients, when I teach this to other solo entrepreneurs, I don't teach that you have a header, and or a graphic in your email. It should look so email is from a person to a person. And so even if you run a business with employees and your business has a different name from you, I recommend that your email come from a person, because it's going to a person. And I recommend that it not have all that stuff that you can do in MailChimp, like a header and the same photo every week. You can put photos in your email, but generally also for something called deliverability, which is making sure your email doesn't end up in spam. You want to make sure that at least 60% of the email is text. So it doesn't need to have all kinds of photo newslettery things. So my emails look very much like a regular email. I like to send them and they are written like that too. So I like to send them on the same day every week, because I have some folks who are, and not just family members, who look forward to my emails, who like to hear what I'm going to say. And so it's and I have a friend, Margot Aaron is another person, is a person who does this really well. And has been doing it for really consistently for a couple of years, where it's Thursday is her day. And so when you get that email from her, it's usually in the afternoon. It's if it's from Margot, but if I get an email from her because she's a friend, if I get an email from her from another day, I go is it Thursday? That's how consistent she is.
And so when I
do appreciate that.
It doesn't matter what day. It's more that you're just consistent with the day of the week that you choose, right?
I think it's worthwhile to do that. I think it's worthwhile to be consistent. For you. Yeah. For you as the,
whatever day of the week though. There's not not everyone should
Oh, no.
Like, you know how people could get
not that I know of. Again, like, I mean, you know, I think like,
or Wednesday.
Yeah, no, I'm always learning stuff about email, but I'm always learning stuff. But you know, yeah, no, not that I know. I think like the things I did say about like it's more you want to keep in mind the concept that it's you, a person sending it to a person. Like, so I know that we were supposed to talk about how to increase engagement. So that's a mindset shift, or if you've never thought about email, that's a thing that you really need to think about. And because if you're kind of like sending it like, and people do this with video too, like, my name is Maggie Frank of Maggie Frank-Hsu Consulting or something, you know, and it's just like, first of all, start with like, why are you sending this to me? Right. So that's why it's really good to have in mind, like, I'm a person, what am I excited to tell these people that I'm writing to? And even keep in mind one person. Like a lot of times when I write my emails, I'll just have one person in my list in mind. So like a real person that I know. And then basically be writing it to her. It's not always the same person. It's usually not. But it's like, oh, you know, she would think this is really cool, and I'm just going to pretend like I'm writing it to her. Tim Ferriss, if you want, like, you know, advice from big guru names, he says like I think when he was starting his email practice, he was writing them in GDocs, or maybe he was just writing them in Gmail. That's what he was doing. And then copying it over to his email service provider. Probably now he doesn't write any of them. But so if you need that, like if you need that mental trick of like writing it really, like, but really start thinking like it's from me to one person. Because the other thing I was going to say, like I saw some people asked about subject lines. Like there definitely are subject line tricks that we can talk about. But the biggest trick is when people recognize your name. And they like want to hear from you. That's what you're working on, is like, so that's what you're not selling in every email. At least like every email is not written as like a sales pitch, but you're working toward a place where it doesn't matter what the subject line is. They're just like, oh, Nicole, I love what Nicole's doing. I'm going to check her email, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's important to remember. And we're getting a lot of questions here too. So
okay, let's do it.
Dropping them in, and we will be getting to them. Glad you guys are loving this. So let's ask a quick question. Vonda says she's here and eager to find out more about emailing, but she needs a list. Diana says, oh, this is good. This is kind of like what you're talking about. Wondering if there's a good way to intro myself, my business, to people who might not even remember who I am or why I have their info. So maybe Diana, you haven't emailed your list in a while, and now you kind of want to get back into it.
That's a good one. So it depends on how long it's been. If it's been like a year, I actually have some free templates. You should,
and that's actually linked to Revive Your Dead List, right?
Yeah, Revive Your Dead List is
Click the link right in the description and get access to those templates.
If it's been a year, like you can do that. If it's been less than a year, if it's even been like 9 months or 6 months, just start sending emails regularly, like once a week. Don't do a thing. Okay, so the first email, you may weave in like why you haven't written to them for a long time, or you may weave in a little bit of bio if they really don't know who you are. But just start, if you like, commit to an email practice, and just start sending emails. And then, because people will unsubscribe, like if they don't want to receive it, or like a lot of people won't open, and then you can delete them off your list. There's, depending on if you have ConvertKit or MailChimp, there's like lots of instructions online for how to do that. But yeah, like I would just sort of jump in. Don't do the thing, people do this on Instagram too, where you're like, it's been so long. Or remember, like even with blogging, people would stop blogging for a while, and then the next blog post would be like, oh, you know, I guess you're wondering, you know, well, I broke my foot. And no, nobody's wondering. Nobody cares. Nobody noticed that you haven't been emailing.
Right.
And so you can just jump right back into it in terms of like, what could they get out of hearing from you? So think about writing that first email, because that's, you know, where you want to grab their attention. So the only things that grab their attention authentically, like without being scammy, are what's the problem that you're solving now, and like talk to that.
And the
So
focus
like
on the audience, not on yourself.
yeah, and then but you can kind of weave it, like, so she mentioned she's worried they won't even remember why she has their contact info. If they signed up for your list according to the rules, right? Like they opted in and you didn't just add them because you met them at a party or whatever. Then I wouldn't worry too much about that. Cause like if they really don't remember and you start with the problem, you start talking about, you know, like whatever problem you solve, like, you know, I wish we knew what her problem was, but what the problem is she solves. But she starts with, you know, like, oh my God, I have no time to take my dog to the vet. And you sell some kind of service that deals with that, right? Then they're just going to notice that. They're going to be like, oh yeah, you know, that does bother me. Like, who is this? And then they're like, okay. And then like, or if they're annoyed, they'll unsubscribe. That's another thing I wanted to talk about was the unsubscribes thing, because people don't like emailing their list regularly because they get unsubscribes. Every time I email.
Actually, we did have a question about that. How do you do this? Like email every week without losing everyone? I totally.
Oh yeah.
Like people will be like, just what is this?
Oh yeah. I don't think you'll lose everyone. You do get unsubscribes every time you send an email. I've never worked with a client that didn't happen to. So that's why the stuff that you've been training on and other people train on about getting opt-ins, getting people to opt into your list is important, because your email list but your email list, I don't know if people would disagree with me, but I say it should have churn. It should have people coming in and people leaving. There should be a revolving door, because everybody solves a problem that is like a bigger, like is like means more or less to an audience at a certain time, right? So like I do email, right? So if maybe you joined my list because like you liked my freebie and you used my freebie, but then you really just didn't feel like you cared about email anymore. You moved on to Instagram ads or something. And then, you know, but you didn't unsubscribe, but you stopped kind of opening, or you did unsubscribe, and then whatever, it doesn't matter. That's the life cycle of how this thing works. It's like the person is more interesting to you sometimes, and then you kind of pull away. And I think that's okay. Like, I think you kind of have to feel like it's okay for people to go away. If you're a small brand, like we are, solopreneur, like, you know, the idea is they will come back around and maybe resubscribe. And that does happen. That happens to me. That happens to a lot of people, as long as you're staying, this is what, with the consistency, right? If you're creating new content, you're going to show back up in their world somehow because they found you in the first place. So there's that, but you can't obviously, rely on the fact that they're going to resubscribe. Right. But I think like letting go of the fear of them unsubscribing is really important, because like, yeah, if they didn't want to hear about the way you solve this problem, they don't want to get this free info that you send in email, like value laden emails, hopefully you're doing, then they're not going to buy from you if they don't want to hear the free stuff. So losing people who aren't going to buy.
Unsubscriber notifications. I know some people have those turned on where you get like,
oh yeah, you got to turn those off.
Unsubscriber,
you got to turn those off. Yeah, energetically, those are really.
Turn those off.
I don't. Yeah, but you do. I mean, I notice. I don't even take it as an indicator of anything bad if I get more unsubscribing on a particular email. In fact, like some people will say, this is, you really have to grow a pair of balls if you want to believe the following. But like when you get more unsubscribes, it's actually good because you've said something that is repelling the wrong people.
I was just going to say, I've noticed that on my stronger emails, the ones where I'm like, ooh, that's really good, that's really like in alignment, I get more unsubscribes. And I think people get triggered, and that's fine. Like, I don't really want people on my list who are going to get triggered by what I say or not want to take action on it anyways. So I think like that's totally okay. The other thing I've noticed about number of unsubscribes, and that my clients have noticed too, because a lot of them aren't emailing consistently before we start working together, the unsubscribe numbers drop. You still get unsubscribes each email, but they've noticed, and I've noticed too, like when I send out emails consistently, it's fewer subscribers per email versus like when you send out one email a month, it's usually like,
oh yeah, that's a very good point.
you know,
Yes. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think it evens out anyways. I don't think that the number of unsubscribers increases per email. It's just that you get them more consistently in smaller amounts versus.
Yeah. And I think like, yeah, that's a really good point. I never actually thought about that. Like, yeah, but definitely when if you're inconsistent and you do things like you send a few emails in a row and then you stop and then 6 months later you do that again, that first email, you will lose a lot. So I think you said her name was Vonda. Like, yeah, don't be worried if like a lot of people unsubscribe off that first email. Just keep sending them.
Yeah, Diana.
Diana. Sorry, I didn't hear her name. I didn't mean. Yeah. So, but yeah. So I think that first email, that's good. It's like a decluttering. Like think about it like a Marie Kondo thing. You know,
right?
Like you're really getting to the meat, and then we can talk about like. You want to send a weekly email from there on out, but there's also really simple ways that we can talk about for selling on email, beginning with like after you send the first couple. So we can talk about that.
And Chrissy says that she loves the advice person to person and not all the images and headers. And I think that really does like hold people back, the images and headers and having all of that in there. They're like, I have to put all that in there. I have to have the perfect ones. It becomes like a self-sabotage for that. So, I think that absolutely like just get past that and keep it.
Unless you like have, exceptions to that would be like if you, if you're in e-commerce, then obviously you know how e-commerce emails look, but it's really like, you have a catalog of products that you are shipping and stuff. But even then I think e-commerce brands, they didn't ask me, but I think they could be sending more personal emails as well. They could be peppering in with their sales and stuff, something that comes from one person in that organization to the subscriber. So
yeah, I think that absolutely like things can definitely they can get better at things and they could be more relational too, and use segmenting and tagging and things like that to probably target people and speak to people better.
I know. Yeah. Like, you know what Bando is? You know Bando, right? Bando.
I do. I'm not on their email list though.
Like, so her list, that list, but that's Jen Gotch, right? And Jen Gotch, like the person is very compelling, right? Yeah, so like, I think like, I don't know. I think that Bando is like, anyway, whatever. They could use Jen Gotch once in a while, just sending like more of a letter. I think she just kind of does that on Instagram, whatever. But the fact, why I brought that up is, her personal brand, it's like very known and, it's totally makes like what she, it's all kind of enmeshed. And so like, she could definitely she is talking to us. And then also Bando like, is selling us stuff. So you can kind of back and forth, but I don't think you have a lot of e-commerce people in here. Like other than that,
services, a couple of products.
Services. Yes. Services should be from one person to one person. Don't say we. I have another friend who's successful as all get out and she's using we, and it still bugs me because yes, she has like people who are working with her, but it's her, like she's, and I don't know why she doesn't say like, I developed this blah, blah, blah for you. I think that really feels versus like, we've been putting together. It's like, who's we? Like you're in the room alone by yourself.
Where people really do try to make it seem like they're more of a team, and it depersonalizes things. It actually like takes away from it,
Right.
So yeah. I think that's true for sure. Definitely making sure that you're not, that you're not distancing yourself from your email audience. You want to be connecting with them.
Okay.
You want to be building that relationship, and they want to feel like they know you personally when they're getting those emails. They don't want it to feel like it's just like a, Gap or Banana Republic email or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then I wanted, so go ahead. Are there more questions? Because I want to talk about subject lines.
Before we get into the sales piece, what should people do if they feel they don't know what to email their list? Like, it feels like a waste of time when they have nothing to say.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess like, I mean, they should back way the heck up and think about why, like, nobody has nothing to say. So here's another thing I want to say about email, right? Like, I love writing and editing are, my calling, and helping others do the same. But I have worked with my most successful client ever, not a good writer. She writes all of her own content. Um, she's really good at getting her ideas down and really just spending the time, like do, but she's not a good writer. She's not going to write a novel someday. She's not, her writing is not good, but it's so popular. So I don't know. So there might be a number of stories I've come across with clients. Like I had a client who just thought she wasn't a writer because in high school she had a teacher who told her she was a bad writer. So you have to put that aside. You do not have to be a good writer to do marketing writing. You have to have, but then another one. So this idea that you said of like, I have nothing to say. It's like, well, I just, I mean, how to banish, that's like a problem. If you feel like you've started a business and you don't have a point of view, that's kind of one of the reasons to start writing regularly. You'll do things like, so one thing that happens is, as you come up with a process for your service, you can kind of like name the pieces of it, right? So like, I had an email come in this morning and I loved it. She said something like, do you have minimum wage mindset? So like lots of people talk about like money stories and blah, 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 but she named this thing she saw in her clients, minimum wage mindset, right? So then she can kind of like unpack, well, what is that, right? So when you start sending emails week after week, you're talking about what's going on with your clients, you'll start noticing patterns. You can name things, and then your process can really stand out, because a lot of us solve the same problems, but the process is really, what makes a client decide to go with us versus someone else, or really what makes a client succeed with us versus someone else. So if you can start like naming those pieces of your process and talking them through, even just like not solving but talking, even just like her identifying minimum wage mindset and being like, this is what it is, look into your life and see if you have it. Like, that's a great email. That's a great problem solver. So, okay. So before I got, the thing I wanted to say is in terms of solving that problem is, look to your clients, look to like what you just said, what's going on in the last 48 hours that you could apply to business. That's one way. Or just look to like client conversations you've had and write an email about what came out of that. Another way to sort of feel like, to get out over like, I don't have anything to say. I mean, I have the opposite problem. I have always too many things, but
I think trending topics could help too. Like what's going on in the news, like what would appeal to your audience? Like, for example, there's like a lot of stuff in the news about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry all the time lately because they have a kid. So if you're speaking to parents, you could speak to it that angle. If you're speaking to couples, you could speak to it that angle. Like what has happened recently that people are talking about.
The other thing I was going to say actually is you need to talk to people. So this is a great banisher of I don't have anything to say, is go get into Facebook groups. Even if you don't want to, if you're too like shy to get a bunch of people on the phone, get into Facebook groups that you're already in and just pay attention to what those people are talking about. Answer a question you saw in there. Talk about things. Trigger me on social media all the time. So you should use that, right? That's a negative thing, is that we're always getting sucked into these conversations. But a positive thing about it is, and a great way to sort of keep yourself from getting sucked in is just write down or like screenshot that post and put it in your spreadsheet and come back to it. I think like I've never met anybody who didn't have anything to say who started her own business, because there's just like, it's just too hard to do this to not have like shit in your brain that like, and
I think it really is definitely building up a muscle. It's like a muscle. If you haven't done it, it feels uncomfortable. I know too, at first I was like, I can't think of what to write. I can't think of what to say. But the more I show up consistently, the easier it becomes to turn things into stories, see the like thread that runs through stuff and talk about it. It actually becomes easier. It becomes easier to be more conversational about it too, because I know for me with my background, about, as a therapist before, a lot of my writing was very like clinical or research papery, or, it was very like not personal. So it does just take time and practice. And I think it's one of those things like people always say, like, how do I get over it? You got to write through it.
That is why I call it, I recently started through my own practice, I started calling it a writing practice, because what I saw in my clients that were in my group program the first half of the year is that the ones who kept trying, that didn't feel like discouraged because their very first email kind of sucked.
Right.
I mean, everybody's very first anything isn't going to be your very first souffle, your very first whatever, like isn't going to be the best one you ever do. So the clients that actually came back and wrote again and wrote again and wrote again, they got over all that. And so I realized I needed to start talking about it as a practice, because like you said, things get easier, you get better at things. And if you think about it as a practice, then each individual email you send, there's not that much pressure on it, because you're going to do it again next week. So if you do it this week and like it kind of sucked, or you didn't really go, or you didn't really go, it wasn't as interesting as you thought it was going to be, that topic, or it didn't really go where you thought it was going to go, you do it next week.
Right, exactly. You got to come back again the next week anyways.
Yeah.
Consistent. So Maggie says, do you have any strategies to help you reboot when you're facing a writer's block? Like to come up with 100 stories about this water bottle exercise. I think the things you just mentioned help with that for sure. Talking to people, thinking about like what you've been talking about with your clients.
Talking to people really helps me. I don't know. I'm an extrovert, so I don't know if if it's not helpful for introverts, but I just spin around and around in my own head. As soon as I get on, so, having, I think, were you saying this? Somebody was saying like anyway, it doesn't matter who said it, having your posse, like, and, so I try not to like over lean on these friendships, but sort of basically like if you're in a mastermind, if you're in any kind of paid group, for sure, go to those people first. But like, just like, are there people that you can message? I love Voxer because I like to hear people's voices. So I'll just like talk through some issue on Voxer, and then usually a friend will respond to me and I'll be like, no. And then I'll be like, I know what I'm going to do. And then I'll go do that. So, you know what I mean? But it's helpful for that process. But I think, as far as like writer's block, and the deadline is the other thing I would say. So commit to doing it weekly and just send whatever you have, because you will send something, and then that kind of will get you out of.
I think
and don't
goals,
be so,
measurable goals. Like years ago, when I first started writing, more like needed to write blogs, when I first launched my first website, I actually did this thing where at that year I was doing like 30-day challenges for myself. So like just take your vitamin every day. But one I did was writing, and I did the 750 words challenge, where you basically just do like a brain dump of anything, writing for 750 words every day. Comes from 20 pages. So I honestly sometimes would just write like mantras and stuff just to get things flowing. But I found that when I went back and looked at that content, like I could turn much of it into blog posts. So I think too, like maybe just start writing about anything. If you're really feeling stuck, just like write about your day or journal a little bit and see like what comes out of it, or what it could like morph into.
Yeah. And I think like I used to hate journaling. I kind of still hate it, but one thing that helps with journaling is like Google prompts, so that it's about like a topic. So you don't just feel like, I'm like, well, for breakfast I had eggs and the kids were a real pain in the ass, and what am I writing about? Just like get a prompt off the, the Google like writing prompts. That's a good one.
Right. So Tamara says, is there a good length for an email? What's too short or too long?
Oh, that's a really good question. No, there's not one length that I prescribe. Piece, like if you're writing a piece, right? So I usually write like a piece that I also share like on LinkedIn and on my Facebook page and whatever. They need to be as long as they need to be, right? To get to the point. Is there a good length? I mean, this is a good place for us to talk about PSs. So the way people read email is, if they're going to open it, is they'll open it, they'll look at the top, and then they'll kind of lose you if it's long. even your favorite, even people who really like you will kind of lose you and skim. And then you can have a PS. So people are using PSs in all kinds of really great ways, and have been for a while. So you can do like a TLDR PS. That was a lot of letters. PS, here was my point. Link to your Facebook video or whatever. So you could do that if you want to hedge your bets around writing something that's long. I think people tend to write too long on the internet because we don't have editors and it's really easy to self-publish. I know I probably write too long. So yeah, I mean, but it's not shorter the better, I wouldn't say. If somebody's opening, like just write however long it needs to be till you get to the point. And then PSs can really help you with like, so every email should have, so this doesn't have to be true of your weekly emails, but if you want to sell or you want to move somebody to the next step, then you want to make that call to action really clear. And, that's another reason people use PSs all the time, is basically like you're writing and you're being really creative about how this all ties into your service. And then at the bottom, you sort of like, reveal it, and you may link in there, and then you go, love tomorrow, right? Or see you later tomorrow. But then you go, PS, blah, 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 blah. It's $50 off till Friday. Here's the link. So that if you are doing an email that's, promoting your service, you definitely want to use the PS to just be like, this is what we're talking about. This is the call to action. So the PS, I think, like, to answer that question, the PS can help you hedge your bets on if your email is kind of more long and narrative, and they don't always have to be that way, and they don't always have to be short.
Yeah. I think, I try to always use the PS myself, and I'm definitely a scanner too. So I think, make sure you're, bolding the important sentences, or, breaking things up a little bit.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
Right. Like, I think, the length again doesn't matter, but more like just making it very readable for people. So not overly long paragraphs, things that are separated, list things out if you can a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so Vonda, now we have Vonda. She says, I want to know what to send after they opt in or get my freebie. I don't want my emails to just be a series of sales pitches.
Oh, good. Okay. Because that won't work. So I'm really glad to hear you say that. So I have an opt-in that teaches you how to do a welcome series. So I want to share that with your list. I can put it in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have an opt-in so I would build so we haven't talked about automated series, but I would build, they call them autoresponders or drips, but I would build something really simple. And I think it's really important, and a lot of people don't do it. Like over 50% of online businesses don't do, they just have somebody sign up and then that's it. Once you confirm, you never hear from them. Like, you never hear from that business again until they're ready to sell you something. Right. You really don't want to do that, right? So even if you're not ready to email every week, I think it's really important to do a welcome series. I'll tell you real quick, Vonda, that it should be 3 emails. I'm just going to tell you, because you don't want me to say it depends. So I'm going to tell you 3 emails. The first one, not including the one that like confirms that they signed up or whatever. 3 emails after that. And each one should be, it could be a day or 2 days apart. Doesn't really matter. The first one should be sort of setting expectations, like, hey, this is what you get for being on my email list. You'll hear from me about this many times. This is the kind of stuff I send, and this is a little bit, and you can do a little bit about yourself first, what they get, right? Always. And then a little bit about yourself, why you're excited about this or why you're doing this, whatever. And then that's that. And then the second one can be links to your best content. So if you already have stuff or podcast appearances, so it doesn't have to be on your site. And the point of that one, strategically, if you want to get really kind of into email, is not only just to get them to click on those links and go to your site, or go to the podcast interview, but also if you pick 3 topics that are sort of 3 different ways you solve a problem, then you can, if they click on one, you can tag them. They like it when I talk about saving time. They like it when I talk about saving money. They like it when I talk about option 3, whatever. And you can do this with so that you can segment them out in all kinds of ways. They like hearing about the very beginning stages of fixing your business. They like hearing about going to the next level, and you start segmenting out, you know, who is kind of all about what. So when you're ready to sell, you can follow up specifically with one or another of those categories, and those are tags. That's all that's in any email service provider except for MailerLite, I think, is not as good at that. And then the third email, okay, so that's the second one, and that's, you know, that's that. And then the third one, I can't even remember. You can just do those two and stop. The third one is, I don't remember what I say, but I say in the training. I guess you'll have to download the training because I say in the training what they should be.
Of the second one, it's also kind of increasing your like trust factor too, and elevating you as an expert as well as a bonus in terms of giving them more information and also showing them that you've been featured other places. So that can be really nice as well with that. Yeah,
I think, and I used to like really think that was like not that important, but now I think it's really important because I've encountered so many. I mean, I was so lucky at the beginning of my business when I was naive, but like, yeah, there's a lot of horrible, not for real online businesses out there. And you can't, everything is flattened, right? This is the problem with social media as well. It's like everybody who can just put up a picture of themselves and like figure out the opt-in stuff. Like it could be anybody, right? So if you can prove that you are who you say you are and who you are and what is that and what is it why is it different, I think like that's a huge deal. So I'm still trying to remember what I say. Go ahead.
For someone like me, like I don't show up the best in writing. I'm definitely better than I was when I started out, but like my personality, like I use a lot of tone of voice and stuff like that I've not figured out how to translate well into writing. So it's actually really helpful for me in that welcome sequence to share links to podcasts or videos I've done, because that's where people can kind of get more of a feel for my personality. So even if you guys are like, I'm not a great writer, like that's okay. You use the email to get people to the mediums where you feel you show up stronger. And honestly, like I said, I'm a better writer now than I was years ago. So you will get better over time too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Michelle says, I have email addresses for all of my clients, but they haven't opted into an email list. Is it okay to use those email addresses to start my list, or should it be 100% opt-in?
It's gotta be opt-in. So if you have a list of email addresses, she said from who? From her clients? From former clients? I would reach out to those people. If it feels worth it to you, like that's a good way. I mean, it's worth it, I think. If like they are potential repeat business, all those people, like I would reach out to them from Gmail and send them a freebie, like an opt-in, and tell them, just always be direct about stuff like this. Like, you know, I have this email list, the welcome email that I just told Vonda about, like, this is what you can expect to get from it. I would love to have you on there because I'd love to like continue the conversation with you about what whatever you do. And try to think of something really juicy in it, what's in it for them to get on your email list besides doing you a favor. Like they're going to get like more so that takes kind of looking at these people. What did they get from you? And what was their stopping point? And like, can they get kind of going or continued guidance from the email list or something like that? So if you talk to any of these people on the phone, that's a really good time to say something, and getting their verbal opt-in, I think, is okay. Although you can't prove it, but you can't prove it if you
clients.
But yeah, like you can say to them, like, I love, I'm starting to send emails where I talk about all these issues. Like I would say that to you guys right now, actually. You guys should join my email list because I get into all this stuff in way more depth. I really do, though, because I send an email every week. So yeah. So like if you want to hear more about that, get up, please join and then make it really easy with a link, or on the phone. If they say yes, throw them in there. But yeah, I wouldn't take a list and just go like, this is fine. And I used to do it, I guess. Well, no, I never did. But I know people used to do it. But the problem with it, besides the fact that it's not technically legal, is
people still do it. I hate when I go to like,
yeah, people hate it. And then it also kind of feels like you don't feel confident that if you directly ask them, they would say yes.
Yeah.
So
I always get it after like an in-person networking event where like,
oh yeah, I always opt out of this.
Go up to you and hand you the card and are like, do you have a card? And you're like, why? Like, you haven't even started the conversation with me. And then you know what's going to happen, but it's like awkward because he's like, what else do? You give them your card. And then sure enough, 3 days later, you get like a newsletter from
Yeah, I feel like that doesn't happen that much anymore. I don't go to a lot, but like, yeah, if someone comes up to, yeah, I mean,
like local like chamber of commerce.
Oh, right, yeah,
like,
yeah.
Old
yeah, and they think that somebody told them that they're supposed to do that. Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah. It's like, or I feel like people take it from LinkedIn a lot of times. They like scrape it from LinkedIn, but you know, I think that always get permission just to be safe because you don't want people reporting you as spam. You don't want people.
Oh yeah.
How did I get on this email list?
Yeah.
You know, so it's better safe to just ask them. And I think too, as you start creating resources and have a few different resources that solve your potential clients, your target market's problem, it's so much easier because look at how just like smooth it was with Maggie for the welcome sequence. She's like, oh, actually I have a freebie on this. You can download it and get access to it. And it's just much more natural than having to like feel like you have to push it on people or whatever. It actually does solve their problem. You bring in people who want it, and that means they are more likely to actually want to buy from you and want your services. So I think that's also just kind of important to remember as well. When you give them that opt-in approach, the lead magnet approach, you know, you're giving like people who are choosing to sign up and give you their email because you actually have something they want that solves their problem.
Totally. And I think like, you know, I think sometimes I do like, it's okay to mess up and then have people feel like, or it's not a mess up if people say no. Right. Like you want to just let them know that you have it. It's not rude or it's not like you did the wrong thing. If they're like, no, I don't want that, then fine. Right. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So really quick, if you guys have any last minute questions, definitely get them in. But Maggie, I do have like a last question for you, which is, you know, a lot of the people in this group are still doing one-to-one services. They're getting ready to scale or add in new income streams. Their goal is consistent income. You know, and they actually, because they're selling bigger packages or services, a lot of times they have to do sales calls. Like even myself, like I'm not really typically selling straight from my emails because I need to just get people on a call and talk to them and make sure it's a good fit. So for people like that, what is the best way for them to use email?
Call to action to book a call. So that's what I was going to say. Even in the welcome series, in the PS of the second email, or you could write a third email, and you could write a third email actually, a CTA to book a call with you. So if you're this kind of person and this is like the place you're at right now, and you know if you're this kind of person with this kind of problem and this is the place you're at right now, this is how I solve it. If that's interesting to you, again, totally direct. We're not trying to like slide them. We're not trying to trick them into booking a call because we called it some kind of freebie. And then when they get on the call, it's actually a sales call. It's just like, yeah, you know, if you're this kind of person with this kind of problem, and you're at this point in your business or with the problem, this is how I solve it. If that sounds interesting to you, here's the link to book a call with me. And a call with me, here's the link. You could call it a clarity session or whatever. You don't have to, you know, you could call, you know, in 30 minutes, we'll cover X, Y, and Z. So if that sounds like a great place for you to go next, please book a call with me. And you can throw that into your welcome sequence. You can throw that into the PS of your weekly email once in a while.
You do it every email once in a while.
You could do it every email too. But actually, like if you could make it kind of like the footer of every email. So like
it's not it's not a hard sell, you guys. You're giving value in your weekly email. So it's not like every email is only structured to sell. So I think that's an important thing. For those of you who are worried about being salesy or scammy or whatever, like remember, you're also giving value in your emails. So it's okay to you have to actually let people know how to work with you because we're all really busy. We're all really overwhelmed. We need it made really easy for us to find how to work with you. We shouldn't.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Like, search out your website and then have it like hidden on there somewhere.
Because also if you're doing email marketing, people don't know that they can work with you one-on-one. So like cause like Amy Porterfield does email marketing and Jeff Walker does email marketing. Can I call him up and get on a clarity call with him? No, I can't. So if you don't say in, your PS, like, this is the way you can work with me, or, people are afraid to say they have openings because they want people to feel like it's scarce, but like, time with them is scarce, and it is, but like, you still want to say like, I work with people in these ways, A, B, and C. And you can do that in lots of different ways. If there's a certain service you want to highlight, in a 1 month, then highlight that in your PSs. If they're, and then remind people regularly, and then, and you can basically have it as the footer of every single email. But the only caveat I would say there is that people will, it'll be invisible to people. The people who open your emails often, but for people who, they're like, gosh, if only I could find somebody to help me with, organizing my closet. And then you pop in their box and they open it, and then you have the PS, then you're off to the races. So
Exactly. So I think, the key is really like, that's another piece of why the consistency is so important. And I think like, that's what we see a lot of times is we're on people's list. We get the freebie, we never hear from them. And then they're doing a launch and we get like slammed with
emails.
Sequence. And look, you guys, like, it's okay to send out the sales sequence to people, but it's going to be a lot easier if you show up in between those periods consistently for people, because when you are selling, you do send more emails over a shorter period of time, but it makes it easier if people are already used to seeing you in their inbox. Then they're more ready to work with you when you do have to do a sales sequence for something. And they're also less likely to unsubscribe just because, they know it all.
And if you're not doing if you're not at a point where you do launches yet, that's another really good reason to just send weekly emails. Because if you don't do, so on the other side, like, if you're someone who only does launches, you should send weekly emails. If you don't do that yet, it's a really good way to, like, because you can see who opens. If, like, let's say you're really hurting, you need a client this month, right? One thing you can do if you've been sending weekly emails is go back and look at who's opened like my last 4 emails in a row. And if there's like 10 people on there, email those, like get in front of those people, find those people on Instagram and start liking their stuff, like start getting in their world, and figuring out, do they need help? And so I think like there's a lot of ways to use it. That's why I really want to end on that, because if we're close to ending, because if, again, you will not stay consistent writing an email every week just cause, but if it feels like it's connected to making money for you, you will do it. Right. So you got to find those ways to.
And that is not sales, you guys. That is strategic. Right. You need to be connecting your actions to your goals, because you are a business and you need to make money, and that's okay.
Right.
Absolutely. For you.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Maggie. For you guys who are on or watching the replay, you could click on the link in the description and get her email sequence to revive your dead list. And then I'm going to update this in a few minutes. I'll have her send me the link for the welcome email series as well. And I'll stick that in there as well, so it'll be easy for you to find.
Terrific.
And, keep posting questions. If you have any more follow-up questions that have come up, or for those of you on the replay, feel free to post them. We can check back in on them. This is really, really important for you guys who have been looking for consistent income or looking to level up your income. This is absolutely necessary, I feel personally. So I'm really glad you guys got to catch this today. And I want to make sure you get your questions answered. And we're lucky to have Maggie here as a resource on this, especially with her journalistic background, because I think a lot of people you hear from don't have that training or experience. So this is a really great opportunity to get all your questions answered.
All right. Yes. I've enjoyed it so much. I told you I can talk for another hour, because there's a lot. And I'm really glad you gave me the opportunity to do this, because I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Everyone, we will see you in the group. I'll be in later. If you guys need anything at all, just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much.